everyone? Bradley Jack Design here with another Discord critique. We got a tight group of graphics today, which is nice. Only about 12, so it should be a pretty quick video. First up, we got a couple from last week that were a little bit of a duplicates, but not really. So we're going to talk about those first. We've got Conan Designs. We got Ivan here with this Nets at Wizards graphic. I mean, looking at it initially, there's not really much I would say about it. It's a nice graphic. We've got good composition up here of, hierarchy. Look here. Then we've got these guys coming down here. You've got good white space of stuff that doesn't need to have stuff in it. I wish maybe do something different with the Nets logo so you can actually see the Nets logo here. It looks nice here with the Wizards logo. Maybe just put their black and white logo here or something like that instead of having this screen have it multiplied maybe. Good use of some elements in the background. Maybe tone those down, maybe make them 50% as opaque, but just sort of nitpicking. I like the editing going on here. I think you played well with the lighting going on in the background from these sort of, steps that are going on. You're doing like this blur thing that I do in some stuff. I feel like you probably don't need it this time just because like this shoe's blurred, but this one isn't. So it's a little weird. I just don't think it's needed. I think if you would have just masked it out and just where their shoes are, I think that's all you would need to do to tweak it. Fog and stuff looks pretty good. I'm assuming this graphic would theoretically be for the Nets because the Nets are huge and then the Wizards are just sort of an afterthought. But I think it's a pretty solid graphic. The only other thing I probably would do, like you line up the top of their heads, which is good. I want to see if you lined up their eyes because I feel like this makes Kyrie look super short. I think if you lined up their eyes, it might fix that a little bit, but it's me nitpicking it. It doesn't really matter. So overall, pretty good design. Let's jump around here. We've got this cacao .psd. It's Anthony Edwards graphic that he posted, and I think he made tweaks to this. But just taking a look at this initially, we've got big guy, little guy, which is good. I think this element's nice, and this one in the background. I think the background plays well with what's going on. You ghosted the logo here, though. So like this isn't what the Timberwolves logo would look like. I don't think, at least. No, because like this is supposed to be like a star. So you ghosted their logo, so it should be like inverted. That looks normal. So what you would want to do is you want to make everything that's inside this box black. And then that's what you would have. So like, I can show you real quick. Let's grab just an elliptical marquee tool just to draw a little circle around this. I'm just going to move this up here. I'm just going to grab this, make a new layer. Set this to screen. So the logo should actually look... I'm doing this not how I want. Hold on. Let me toss a gradient map on top of this. Come on. So black and white. Hold on, I gotta use my mouse because it's over here. So I'm gonna kind of sort of group these together. So the black and white logo would look like this, not like this. So you can see how like it still has the light areas. So just for the future, make sure you're not ghosting logos. Because that's one people will call you out on Twitter, but also brand guidelines. Someone from the Timberwolves would probably be like, hey, you got to fix that. You can see a little bit of artifacting in this back photo. You can sort of tweak that with some neural filters. Let's take a look at the core of what you've got going on here. So for me, I feel like there's too much white space up here. It's imbalanced down and to the left. Like, put Anthony Edwards up here, and then there'll be equal balance on all the sides instead of big area, little area, normal area, just huge area. So I think if you just move him up just move both of these guys up because I think these guys play well with each other. And I think this looks solid. He looks a little too soft to me over here. Whoops. Just like the skin looks a little too soft, a little too noise reduced. And then for the text down here, one, you've got the logo up here. You know, I don't think you really need to ghost it down here. But the blue's a little hard to read. I like how you're using contrast in the text with small and big. But probably just make them both white so you could read it. Just because blue and red have a tendency to vibrate a lot when it's on top of black. But I think it's pretty, you know, it's pretty solid other than that. Let's see, where are we going in order now? We're going to start here. This is Dean made this. Now this was uploaded. I tried to get a high resolution version of this, but I don't think I could get one. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can take a look at it. So there's a lot going on here. You know, when I look at this, I see things that I think are done just to be done. They're done sort of amateurishly is what I would say. So like you've got this paper texture on the edge, but then there's this big gap. So like if I use a paper texture like this, I'm going to make sure that this edge is flush with the edge here, you know, so there's no gap. Like it's flush here, which is good, but not on the side. So stretch that out to fix that. You know, D'Angelo's not really, he's just kind of floating here. I would personally have made this D'Angelo smaller just so he's not covering up his face here, and so there's more contrast between these two. Because right now they blend in together because they're just sort of this whole big space. There's not a lot of white space to deal with because then you fill it up with his name. Now his name's fine. I think if you put his name right here, it might allow the graphic to breathe more up here and around the sides. And then you've got the T-Wolves logo in the background. I think it's ghosted just like it was in the other graphic. So don't ghost the layers, or don't ghost the logo. And then I don't think the black is working. I think if this black was blue it would be better because it's commanding a lot of attention. It contrasts a lot with the bright blue, and it sort of merges in and melds together with the darkness of D'Angelo here. I probably would try and brighten up this area of his face as well, just because it's a little dark. Those are some initial thoughts. I think the way you have this text is fine. You know, really they'll line this up so the D lines up with the R. And then I think just put it in a different spot so it's not taking up some white space that's needed for the graphic. Jump around, go to Ethan. We got Hegsy graphics here. Nice Joe Burrow with some tigers in the front. Sort of a scenescape. So, for the stuff in the front, like this is sticking out to me with how sharp it is, and then how this is blurry, but it doesn't look like it's blurred enough. Like I feel like you could have blurred this more. Like I feel like it reads a little bit better on this side. But like blur this stuff a little bit more for a little bit more depth, just because like this, it just looks kind of weird over here. Because you can kind of see where, you know, there's some edge to it. I think if you blur it, it would help it a little bit better. But I think the scene is done well. You know, you light Joe Burrow up pretty decently. You know, I like the tigers. I think they're putting the scene pretty well. I feel like some of this light though, like, is this light green? Does it have a green? To me, it looks like it has like a green hint or tint or hue to it, but the light is white that's coming, you know, this is white. So this shouldn't be green. So I think that's a little odd. And I probably would have made overall Burrow a little darker. Like you see how he's kind of darker here, the tiger. You know, do that in more of these spots maybe. And then if he has a shadow, if all this light's coming from the back, there'd be some sort of shadow down here, you know? Like you kind of see it here in the tigers. Those are just like some nitpicky things. I think it's pretty solid overall. I just think there's a couple areas you can fix. Like is this the edge of this clip? Like, what is this here? I'm trying to look at things now because, like, this looks super crispy because it's, like, really porous rock, but then it hits up against this, like, painting. You know, so you can see the contrast in just textures if you zoom in a little bit. So maybe that's something to tweak and take a look at as well, but it's a good graphic. Next, we're going to Underdog Visuals. Anthony Walker, forward. This is a signing graphic for this guy. So, you know, this is a composition that people have seen before, but, you know, it's a composition. It's fine. What I see when I look at this is, for me personally, I would want to see a little bit more of a grid in here, unless there's a specific reason it looks like this. Like if these are the streets in Miami and this is Miami's campus, then that's great, you know. But if they're just boxes for boxes, you know, I would line them up a little bit better so they flow, so there's not like this weird area here where there's like this weird box. I probably wouldn't have put it over his eye. I probably would have kept that normal. But I like how you're using different textures and shapes and colors and photos and stuff like that, so that's good. You've got a random topographic map on here, just to have a random topographic map on here. You know, find a topographic map of Miami and use that instead of something that looks generic, because it ties into the city more than. I think this texture you have going on throughout is a little too intense. It makes these two little items harder to read, especially Go Canes, because it's just such a scripty font, or such a light handwritten font. I probably would have picked something a little easier to read or something thicker. You know, I think this is good. Like the handwritten play is good, but it's just like on here once. Then Go Canes is on here, but they're not like, they're there, but they don't pull any attention. I think the text is good here. You know, forward. I probably would have put forward over here. Just so it's an Anthony Walker forward, because this is kind of weird because it looks like it's supposed to be part of the Adidas logo, but it's not. As for the players here, really the only other thing is, you know, get rid of this orange that's on him. So, you know, make a new layer. Let me try and make a new layer. Make a new layer, you know, set it to color or hue, and then just, you know, just desaturate some of these oranges around the jersey. You know, I'm going to do it on all of it, but like, let me erase, you know, going to erase in where it is, just so it's desaturating the neutral colors. That's probably what I do. And if you dumb down the background here, you know, it would make this easier to read, because you've got this black area right here on sign that's kind of hard to read. So that's probably what I would tweak a little bit. Also, both of these players are... Hold on. There we go. Both of these players are, you know, going this way. There's a lot of motion this way. So it wants you to look this way. So then, like, pull us back in with something in this area. Or move these over. So, like, all the attention is over here. You can see if I cover up this side of the graphic, there's nothing over here, you know? So I think balance-wise, put something over here to balance it out. Maybe the UM logo right here. Maybe that'll balance it out a little bit. Next up, we got Z to D. You shared this with me. This is Jack's Creative right here. But he showed this to me on Instagram. I gave him some tips or ideas. I personally kind of like this sort of sketchy look he's got going here. It's kind of blocky. So if that was what you were going for, I think it works out well. It's, you know, generally I don't like things that are heavily noise reduced. But I think if you're going to then apply like some stuff to it, I think it works out well. I think you've got the ball lit pretty well. And you've got his foot. I think you applied the fire decently. You've got the lighting here pretty solid. I feel like this would need more color change. I think it's lit well on his shorts, but I think you would need to add some of this color back to it. And then actually you would have, you know, the color hit here on the inside of him, and then like the back of his arm would be darker, and this side of his arm would be darker. You know, this is lit decently because like if this is lighting it up, this would be lit, and this is dark, which works out well. But then all in all, if this is going to be your guy, you know, you've got all this space of nothing. So, you know, make it bigger so it fills up more space on the composition. I feel like it's something that you could have done to just elevate the piece. Oh, what do we got now? Got, I don't know if it's on here. Oh, I didn't download it. Hold on. Let me download this. Download. We'll toss this in. So this is edits by WY, which you can see here, which is the thing that I just don't like. Like, don't put your logo in the middle of the design. Like, if you look at something, you know, nobody does that. You know, people mainly do it so if someone steals this, that you can say, oh, you took my graphic, but you could easily Photoshop that. Just put it, sign it in the corner. It's meant to be a signature. That's what logos are. They're meant to be signatures to a brand. So if you put it just randomly on something, you're not signing it. So just put it in the corner and use it as a signature. You're not the only one that does that. It's just something that I'm like, why do you do that? All right, let's take a look at what we've got going on here. So similar to what I said before, just before, compositionally, to me, this is a little odd because you've got everything going on over here. This is kind of distracting with the texture. And then this doesn't really take up, you know, this doesn't bother me so much because the contrast is well with this. I don't really like the application you have going on in the text, you know, just because it doesn't, I don't know what the, like, it doesn't seem to fit. I don't know. I really just don't like the drop shadow. I think that's really what it is. And I don't like the bow font. It's just like a generic, here's like Garamond, here's a serif font, you know? The Bichette is fine. I think the Bichette looks nice. I feel like you should have used a sans serif font to pair with bow, or pair with Bichette. That would pair with it a little bit better. Let's take a look here. Is Bow Bichette number 11? Because that would make sense why you have this here, but you also have it the same size as this and this, so it just seems like a random element. And like these like hexagon circle things, like why, what are all of these things, you know? Because they're only up here, there's nothing down here, you don't have them overlaying anywhere else, so why are they there? And I just think this is too busy. And you've got this big pattern and then the complicated Blue Jays logo and the very low contrast navy with the background blue. It's kind of hard to see. But then these guys compositionally, like, you know, it just doesn't make, I don't know where to look. Because like these guys blend in together because they're so close. And then this guy's off to the right side. These guys are also both putting energy over here. They're basically saying they're looking at each other. So basically you just go like this, and this is where you look in the graphic. So then you don't look anywhere else, and nothing else pulls out what pulls the eyes away from this. So like you look here, so you look here and then you go, okay, I need to look here, but then you just look down here and then you might go, okay, this is where, you know, I'm looking at this graphic. I think compositionally it would have helped if you made this Bow Bichette smaller. And what I would have done is I would have had everyone looking out from the side. So I would have put this bow here. So he's looking this way. And then this Bow Bichette here. And then he's got his bat like this. And then this bow's smaller here. And I feel like that would have flowed better. And then you have to figure out, you know, you could put this down here. You know, and I just think compositionally it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So keep in mind of that. And I think just the background's too busy. You know, you want people to focus here on Bow, but then you have all this complicated stuff that is there for just because, you know. To me, it just doesn't make sense. We got EJ Kibble with his awesome graphic here. I'm pretty sure this is Nadal. Yep. Yeah, I recognize that logo. Okay, so This is more just like a Photoshop composition or just like a manipulation, but I think it's done really well. You know, he's got this lightning bolt, and then I think you lit it pretty well over here. It seems a little soft in some points, but like it's nice. I think it's done well. It contrasts well with, like, you've got the natural light from the original photo here, and then you added in your own secondary source from here that contrasts well. You know, you include it on the racket. You've got this other gray blue down here that I think you lit pretty well down here. You know, I don't know what that is. It's like a weird little spot, but you know, it's nice. Then you've got this purple lightning bolt down here. And I think you did a good job of exploring the areas that would actually be hit by it. And it's in sort of a brushstrokey way, actually. Sort of artistic instead of realistic. But the same, like you do here, like it's all good. You know, I don't have much to say. I feel like this spot right here, though, I feel like this wouldn't be purple. That's like the main thing, because the light's coming from down here. So I feel like these two things wouldn't be purple, and this wouldn't be as purple. You know, I get like the reflection coming off, so I think that would be a little bit better. But like, you lit it well. I think what you did, which a lot of people struggle with when lighting, is you made him super dark. You know, it's super dark in the front here. This is all dark, but that means you have a lot of contrast with the highlights. So I think that's good. So I like this. I don't really have much to say about it, so good job all in all. All right, next up, what do we got? We've got this by Culture. I want to get some critique on this. So this is for Vertical Academy. Okay, what do we see here when we're looking at this? So like, this doesn't read vertical, it reads V, and then it reads vertical. So like, I get what you're trying to do, but I wouldn't have this much space between the text. And then I probably would make these bigger, because if you're looking at this, since this isn't like a well-known team, you know, you can see Vertical Academy here, but I think vertical is hard to read here, so you don't know exactly what you're looking at first, which is why I would make this bigger. But if you make this more legible, I don't think you need to do that. You've got hash marks up here, which are sort of random. You know, they're not anywhere else. Why are these on here? What do these have to do with anything, you know? Have intent with why you put stuff on here. I like what you're trying to do with the background, like with this and where the players are and this. I don't understand this secondary bar down here. Now you've got the bar up here, which is a frame for vertical, but then you have this other one that's just kind of there. The shadows are okay. You know, I think they could be a little bit better shadow-wise. You know, some of the lighting is nice in some of these areas. I think you did a good job there. But then after that, it's like, here's a bunch of guys, and then this guy. So like, when you look at this composition, you've got this guy here, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other guys that just blend in together. It's like you don't know where to look after this in the composition. You see the big contrast down here, which is nice. I think you just need to take off some of these guys. There's just too much going on. Now, that might be what they wanted. You know, if this worked for a client and they say, hi, we need these 10 guys on here, then there's not much you can do. Other than sort of maybe group them up to be a little bit tighter. Like, you've got a lot of space here, a lot of space here. This guy's small and in the back. Like, what's going on? This guy's just standing here. Like, why is this photo on here if it's just a guy standing there, you know? I would put things on here that only have, like, high excitement or high impact. You know, like, this is a good photo. This is a good photo. If it's vertical for, like, jumping, you know, why are these guys on the ground? You know, only put guys on here that are jumping then, you know? That's probably something I would have done. We're not done yet. We got a couple more. So we got this by design by Lexi. This is for Red State basketball. So they did a blackout when they played NKU, I believe. So I like what's going on in the background. Up next, then we've got, sort of some blackout text with some beveling embossing on it that is on the ball to make it say blackout kind of in the background. The only thing to me initially from looking at this is I want it to be more black because it's very gray. It's a gray out right now. So, make it black. It's a blackout because it's black. And then doing so, what I incidentally did was this is kind of hard to read down here. This is kind of hard to read down here. There we go. Right here mainly where you've got the Nutter Center and Friday and the date, just with his jersey name. So maybe just behind that layer, just take a small gradient and just like kind of draw it upwards, set it to multiply, just so you can read the text more. It just adds a little bit more contrast. I think that would help with this. You can see the difference with how bright or how dark it is. Like you've got black here. I would have tried to just made it more black for an actual blackout. I think you've got the information down here pretty decently. I don't think you need like the computers. I get what you're saying here. I would probably just nix these guys and just be like ESPN or watch on ESPN, listen on WONE, something like that. That's pretty much it. The black and white contrasts well, I think. Might be a little too intense. I think they might be a little too large, these little specks, because they blend in with this, but if that's what you wanted, then that's fine. And if you're going to use the same texture, make sure you can't tell. So like I can tell you may use the same texture because you just flipped it around, because this is the exact same. Just drag this off so it's off the side so you can't see it. That's what I would do. But I mean, pretty solid. That's all I really have to say. We got cast graphics. This Jordan, just sort of manipulation over the Grand Canyon, it looks like. So for me, when I look at this, I'm wondering, what depth of field did you shoot this photo at where this is in focus, but the ball, which is, 2.5 feet away from his face, is blurry, and his foot is 6 inches away from his foot and blurry. I wouldn't have blurred any of this and really let these shine. Maybe a motion blur that's on like more of his actual legs and more of his arm. That might bode well, but not just like a Gaussian blur. I think you're trying to do some lighting with like a sun back here, and I think it works like here. I think this is a little too bright in his hand. Like his hand looks somewhat radioactive because you don't have a lot of shadows in the front. It's just adding highlights to everything. He also looks, just super noise reduced, and that could be from the photo you used, but it's just like you zoom in, super noise reduction, which I'm not a real big fan of, but if you're using a crappy photo, then there's not really much you can do, because he's so noise reduced, but then you've got this nice crisp photo behind him, so it doesn't really make sense. But I think you edit him, like the editing and contrast and clarity on it, I think it's just too much noise. All right, I think we got two more. We got CST visuals with this Dejante Murray graphic for the Spurs. Now, this looks a lot like what, the Bulls have put out, something that Hometown Designs would make around the All-Star game with these specific shapes, which is fine, just as long as you know that. Good shadow down here, plays well, everything's centered to the center. I feel like you have too many stars. Like they kind of all fit though, like as a background element, so maybe not. I don't know, kind of like it. The text is actually kind of nice for how small it is. Maybe just tighten up this space a little bit, like one space, or like just a little bit in between everything, so it separates the stats a little bit more. Like I think this looks nice. It's centered. You got a lot of contrast with the text, and it flows well. It leads you right into him. I think he plays well with the star. I probably would have put a little bit of a shadow underneath here, you know, some shadow in here or something just to show that he's on top of it. But other than that, that's all I really would have added to this. I think everything else is pretty solid with it, so good job. And then last but not least, if we can find it. There it is. This is by Ruben. Bengals Rams Super Bowl graphic. So I like the symmetry you've got going on here. Let's see how symmetrical this is though. So make a new guide from layout right down the center. Pretty good, you know. Lombardi Trophy could be over a little bit more. And then equal spacing here. So, you know, Stafford could be over here just a teeny bit. Same with Aaron Donald. Maybe you move this guy over. Trey Hendrickson over a little bit. I think Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp to me looks actually... It looks a little green. I don't know what it is. Like, it looks weirdly contrasted. Like, his whites aren't pure white. Like, this looks actually white, but this looks like blue, you know? Just like a weird tint to it. And then, just like, again, balance-wise, like, you know, put Coach's head here. So then it flows in and makes sort of like a mirror shape to McVay over here. You're just sort of balanced because you're really selling this symmetrical balance. So make sure it's actually spot on. I think he's a little too orange. Just like his hair's starting to like blend in with the shadows of his face. That's really what I'm saying. So it kind of all blends in, which shouldn't happen because you should be able to see a distinct contrast. If you're going to do that, maybe whiten up his eyes a little bit. Like, to me, none of these scream that they're in the same scenario. You know, the highlights are a little blue here, but the highlights up here are more orange or yellow. This is a little bit more colder than this. Like, this is like... So it's nice and warm, which is why they're yellowish highlights. And this is a very cold, very cold. If you just look at the blacks here, you can see what I'm talking about. See how light this is? How light and cold, and how magenta this is. And then this is even darker. Sort of in the same vein, but darker than this. That's just something to keep aware of. Whenever I put multiple pieces into one setting, you know, keep track of that. Try and match the jerseys so everything is from the same vein. I think you have I think down here, I think this is solid. And you have the text, like this fits nicely. This is nice and symmetrical with what you've got going on. You know, I would just bump out this line so it matches up perfectly here, even if it's longer, because like right here where it says Joe Burrow, there's extra space, and there's extra space here of blank. So I would probably keep that in there. But I think the text at the bottom's solid. I would probably get rid of this triangle that you have in the background. I think it looks nice here if you used it as like a cropping agent. So like they were cropped here, I think that might work well. But I don't think it adds anything up here, you know? Palm trees in the back I think are fine. But then after looking at this, I think what you have up here gets lost. Because I think this plays well nicely. I think if you brought this down and made it smaller like this, or made it like right here, I think it might look nice. And what you're doing, which I'd probably pick and choose. Are you gonna write out Bengals, or are you gonna use the logo? Do either or. And then since you have this such symmetry, put verses in the middle. So it's verses. And I get it, if you use the logos, you'd be able to then have that symmetry. But since Bengals and Rams are two different, you know, it's 4 characters and 7 characters, it wouldn't bode well for this symmetry. So maybe get rid of the words and just use the logos. Also, I don't think this is what their white logo looks like. Their white logo is weird though. I think there's a border to it, but I could be wrong. But that is it for this week. There's a lot of good designs in here, so that's great. If you want to have something of yours critique just like this, join my Discord. I'll do these once a week. You get one design a week. I do them Tuesday to Tuesday essentially, so anything that's been posted to my Discord after this previous Tuesday, the like 2nd, will be on the video for next week. And I will see you guys next Tuesday for the next stream. You guys have a lovely rest of your weekend.